Chapter 1. The rejection bonding ceremony was supposed to be the most important night of my life. I stood in the center of the grand hall, surrounded by flickering candlelight and the watchful eyes of the Shadowmoon pack. My white dress, traditional, flowing, chosen by Damien's mother, felt suddenly too tight, too revealing. The delicate lace that had seemed romantic this morning now felt like a cage against my skin. Elara Thorne, Damien's voice rang out across the hall, and I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze. My mate, my destined partner, the alpha who was supposed to complete me, protect me, love me for the rest of our lives. But something was wrong. His green eyes, usually so warm when they found mine, were cold tonight, distant, like he was looking at a stranger instead of the woman he'd courted for 6 months. The woman who'd given up everything, her job, her apartment, her human life to be with him. Damien Blackwood, alpha of the Shadowmoon pack. He paused, and my heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, the moment where he'd claim me, mark me, bind our souls together under the full moon's blessing. The pack held its collective breath. Reject you as my mate. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, my hand flying to my chest as if I could hold my shattering heart together through sheer will. What? The word came out as a whisper. Surely I'd misheard. Surely this was some kind of ritual? I didn't understand. Some test that he'd explained and I'd forgotten in my nervousness, but the gasps echoing through the hall told me I'd heard correctly. You heard me. Damien's voice was flat, emotionless. He stood on the raised platform in his ceremonial robes, looking every inch the powerful alpha he was, and nothing like the man who'd kissed me goodbye this morning, who'd promised me forever. I reject you, Elara. You are not fit to be the Luna of this pack. Not fit? My voice cracked, but I forced myself to stay upright, to not collapse in front of all these people. Damien, I don't understand. This morning you said this morning I was mistaken. He turned away from me, addressing the pack instead. I allowed sentiment to cloud my judgment. This woman is human, weak. She has no wolf, no strength, nothing to offer our pack but diluted bloodlines and vulnerability. Each word was a knife between my ribs. You knew I was human, I said, hating how my voice shook. You've known from the beginning. You said it didn't matter. You said the mate bond was a mistake. Damien finally looked at me again, and the cruelty in his eyes made me wish he hadn't. My wolf chose poorly. But I am alpha, and I choose the good of my pack over a cosmic accident. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people who were looking at me with pity, disgust, or worse, satisfaction. I could see it in some of their faces, the female wolves who'd never hidden their jealousy when Damien chose a human over them. Then why? I demanded, my shock crystallizing into anger. Why put me through this? Why make me give up my entire life? Move here, prepare for this ceremony. Why not just tell me weeks ago? Because I needed to be sure. His jaw tightened. And now I am. You don't belong in this world, Elara. You never did. The finality in his voice made my knees weak. This was really happening. He was really rejecting me, in front of everyone, on what should have been our bonding night. You coward. The words escaped before I could stop them, and shocked silence fell over the hall. You're rejecting me because you're afraid. Afraid of what the pack thinks, afraid of appearing weak, afraid of enough. Damien's power rolled through the room like thunder, and I felt it press against my chest even though I had no wolf to submit. You will leave Shadowmoon territory tonight, and you will never speak my name again. Gladly, I spat, though my voice broke on the word. But know this, Damien Blackwood, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. I turned on my heel, my bare feet slapping against the polished wood floor as I fled the hall. Behind me, I heard the pack erupt into murmurs, but I didn't care. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but run. The night air hit me like a slap when I burst through the mansion's doors. Cold, crisp. The full moon hung heavy and silver above me, mocking me with its beauty. This moon was supposed to bless our union. Instead, it witnessed my humiliation. I ran toward the forest, my white dress billowing behind me like a ghost. I had no plan, no destination. I just needed to get away from the lights, the voices, the crushing weight of my shattered dreams. I was halfway across the lawn when I felt a presence watching me from the tree line. I skidded to a halt, my heart lurching into my throat. Yellow eyes gleamed in the darkness between the trees. Wolf eyes, but wrong somehow. Wilder, more intense than any pack wolf I'd seen. Who's there? I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. The wolf stepped into the moonlight, and my breath caught. He was massive, easily the size of a small horse, with midnight black fur that seemed to absorb the light around him. His eyes were molten gold, fixed on me with an intensity that should have terrified me. But I wasn't afraid. Something in those eyes called to me, recognized me in a way Damien's never had. The wolf's lips pulled back, revealing fangs that could tear me apart. But instead of attacking, he did something that made no sense. He lowered his head, submissive, respectful. Behind me, I heard shouts, Damien's voice, commanding his warriors. They'd seen the rogue wolf. They were coming. The black wolf's eyes snapped up to meet mine one more time, and I saw a question there. A choice being offered. Stay and face Damien's wrath and the pack's pity, or run and see where this dangerous, beautiful creature would lead me. I ran toward the wolf. He turned and bolted into the forest, and I followed, my torn dress catching on branches, my feet bleeding on the rough ground. Behind us, I heard Damien roar orders, heard the pack shifting to give chase, but the black wolf was faster, leading me deeper and deeper into the wild woods, until the sounds of pursuit faded and all I could hear was my own ragged breathing and the steady, powerful rhythm of paws hitting earth. Finally, in a moonlit clearing, he stopped and turned to face me, and then, in a ripple of shadow and muscle and impossible magic, the wolf became a man. He stood before me, tall and bare-chested, with the same midnight black hair and molten gold eyes. His face was all sharp angles and brutal beauty, with a scar cutting through one dark eyebrow. Elara Thorne, he said, his voice like gravel and honey. I am Kael Nightshade, Alpha of nothing and no one. His eyes burned into mine. And I claim you. Chapter 2. The Alpha's territory. The forest swallowed us whole. One moment I was standing in the clearing, my heart still racing from whatever the hell just happened with Kael, the man who'd appeared out of nowhere like some kind of dark guardian angel, and the next, his hand was wrapped around mine, pulling me into the dense undergrowth with an urgency that made my stomach drop. Wait, I gasped, stumbling over a root I couldn't see in the darkness. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. His voice was low, tight with something I couldn't quite place. Anger? Fear? Damien won't let this go. Not after what he saw. What he saw. I yanked my hand free, forcing him to stop. My bare feet ached, my wedding dress was torn and filthy, and I was done being dragged around like a rag doll. You mean you're the one who just did that to him. Kael turned slowly, and even in the dim moonlight filtering through the canopy, I could see the predatory grace in his movements. Everything about him seemed coiled, ready to spring. His dark hair was disheveled, his jaw set in a hard line, and those eyes, God, those eyes were practically glowing amber in the shadows. I saved your life, he said quietly, too quietly. From my own mate. The word tasted like ash. From the man who was supposed to protect me, cherish me, build a life with me. My voice cracked despite my best efforts. Instead, he rejected me in front of everyone, called me worthless. Something flickered across Kael's face, sympathy maybe, or understanding. But it was gone before I could be sure. Damien's a fool, he said simply, but he's also an alpha, a powerful one. And you just embarrassed him in front of his entire pack. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body despite the cool night air. Do you understand what that means? I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly very aware of how exposed I was, how vulnerable. No, I don't understand any of this. I don't understand why he rejected me, or why you intervened, or why I can't just go home and pretend this nightmare never happened, because there's no going home now. Kael's expression was grim. The moment Damien marked you even incompletely, you became part of this world, the shifter world. And when he rejected you publicly, he made you a target. My blood ran cold. A target for what? For wolves who see you as an insult to pack hierarchy. For rivals who might use you to undermine Damien's authority. For rogues who. He stopped abruptly, jaw clenching. Who? What? I pressed, though part of me didn't want to know. His eyes met mine, and I saw something raw there. Something almost guilty. Who might claim you for themselves? The words hung between us like a physical thing. Claim. Such a primitive word. Such a possessive, territorial concept that should have offended every modern sensibility I had. So why did it make my pulse quicken? Is that what you're doing? I asked, hating how breathless I sounded. Claiming me? No, but he didn't step back. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. I'm not sure I see one. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, the first hint of softness I'd seen from him. You will. Come on. We need to keep moving. This time when he reached for my hand, I let him take it. Not because I trusted him, I didn't even know him, but because the alternative was standing alone in the dark woods, wondering if Damien or his pack would come looking for me. We walked in silence for what felt like hours. The forest grew denser, wilder, until I was certain we'd left any trace of civilization behind. My feet were bleeding now, leaving dark spots on the forest floor, but I gritted my teeth and kept going. I'd be damned if I'd show weakness to this stranger, no matter how my body screamed for rest. Finally, just when I thought I might collapse, the trees opened up. A cabin stood in the clearing, rustic but solid, with smoke curling from a stone chimney and warm light glowing in the windows. It looked like something out of a fairy tale or a horror story. This is your safe place? I asked skeptically. This is my territory, Kael corrected. And no one enters it without my permission. There was something in the way he said territory with absolute certainty, absolute authority that made me look at him more closely. Really? Look at him. He stood like a man who'd never questioned his right to the space he occupied. His shoulders were broad, his stance wide and balanced. He moved through the world like he owned it, like everything and everyone in his path would naturally yield to him. You're an alpha too, I realized aloud. Aren't you? His eyes locked on mine, and I saw the truth there before he spoke. Yes. Then why did you interfere? Aren't there rules about, I don't know, pack politics or territorial disputes or whatever you people follow? You people, he repeated, almost amused. You say that like you're not one of us now. I'm not, I said firmly. I'm human. I was human when Damien marked me, and I'm still human now, in complete bond or not. Are you? He moved closer again, invading my space with that same predatory grace. Because from where I'm standing, Elara, you smell like wolf. You smell like moon and earth and wild things. You smell like you were always meant to be one of us. My name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. I hadn't told him my name, which meant he'd known who I was before tonight, before the rejection, before everything fell apart. How long have you been watching me? I whispered. His expression shuddered immediately, walls slamming down behind those amber eyes. Long enough to know you deserved better than Damien Blackwood. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He stepped past me toward the cabin, then paused at the door. You can come inside, get warm, get cleaned up, or you can stand out here and freeze. Your choice. It wasn't really a choice, and we both knew it. I followed him inside. The cabin's interior was surprisingly comfortable, worn leather furniture, heavy rugs, shelves lined with books. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the log walls. It felt lived in, real, nothing like the cold elegance of Damien's mansion. There's a bedroom upstairs, Kael said, not looking at me as he moved to stoke the fire. Bathroom too. Take what you need. And then what? I asked, exhaustion finally catching up with me. What happens tomorrow? He was quiet for a long moment, his back to me, silhouetted against the flames. Tomorrow, he said finally, we figure out how to keep you alive.
Chapter 3. Dangerous Truths. I woke to the smell of coffee and pine. For one blissful moment I forgot where I was. Forgot the rejection, the humiliation, the mysterious alpha who'd swept me away into the night. Then reality crashed back, and I bolted upright in the unfamiliar bed, my heart racing. Sunlight streamed through rough-hewn wooden shutters. The room was simple but clean. A large bed with thick quilts, a dresser made of dark wood, a chair draped with clothes that definitely weren't mine. My ruined wedding dress lay in a puddle of white silk on the floor, and the sight of it made my stomach turn. I was wearing an oversized flannel shirt that smelled like cedarwood and something wild. Like forest after rain, like him. Kael. The memory of his words sent heat flooding through me. I claim you. So primal, so absolute. Like I was a prize to be won, a territory to be conquered. I should have been furious. Should have told him exactly where he could shove his claim. But instead, I'd let him lead me here, to this cabin in the middle of nowhere. And I'd fallen asleep the moment my head hit the pillow, too exhausted to protest. What did that say about me? The smell of coffee grew stronger, accompanied by the sizzle of something cooking. My stomach growled traitorously, reminding me I hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, before the ceremony, before everything fell apart. I forced myself out of bed, my muscles protesting. My feet were bandaged. When had that happened? And someone had cleaned the dirt and blood from my legs. The thought of Kael tending to me while I slept should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt intimate, careful. I found a pair of soft leggings folded on the dresser, along with thick socks. They were too big, but I rolled the waistband and pulled on the socks gratefully. Better than walking around in just his shirt, even if it fell nearly to my knees. Downstairs, Kael stood at the stove, his back to me. He'd changed too. Dark jeans that hung low on his hips, a black thermal shirt that did nothing to hide the powerful lines of his shoulders and back. His dark hair was damp, like he'd recently showered. He didn't turn around, but his voice rumbled through the space between us. "You heal fast for a human." I looked down at my bandaged feet, confused. "What?" "The cuts on your feet. They're already half healed." Now he did turn, spatula in hand, those golden eyes assessing me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. "That's unusual." "Maybe you just bandaged them really well," I said, defensive. I didn't like the way he was looking at me, like I was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. Maybe. But he didn't sound convinced. He turned back to the stove, flipping what looked like eggs. "Hungry?" I wanted to say no, to maintain some dignity, some distance. But my traitorous stomach growled again, and his lips quirked in what might have been amusement. I'll take that as a yes. I perched on one of the bar stools at the kitchen island, watching him plate eggs, bacon, and toast with an efficiency that spoke of long practice. He set the plate in front of me along with a steaming mug of coffee, then leaned against the counter with his own mug, watching me. "You're not eating?" I asked, eyeing the food warily. "Already did. I've been up since dawn." He took a sip of coffee. "You slept for almost 12 hours. 12 hours. The bonding ceremony had been at sunset, which meant it was now mid-morning and I'd lost half a day. Why didn't you wake me?" "You needed rest." His voice was matter-of-fact. "And I needed to make sure Damien wasn't sending trackers." My hand froze halfway to the fork. "And is he?" "Not yet." Kael's expression darkened. "Which is interesting." "Interesting how?" "An alpha doesn't let a rejected mate just walk away, especially not with a rogue. It's a matter of pride, of pack hierarchy." He set his mug down with a soft clink. "Either Damien's more pragmatic than I thought, or he's planning something." The eggs turned to ash in my mouth. "What kind of something?" "I don't know yet." His eyes met mine, and I saw the predator lurking beneath the surface. "But I'll find out." I pushed the plate away, my appetite gone. "Why are you doing this? You said you claim me, but you don't even know me. And I sure as hell don't know you. Don't you?" He moved closer, rounding the island until he stood beside my stool, close enough to touch, but he didn't. "You followed me into the forest last night without hesitation. You trusted me enough to fall asleep under my roof. That's not nothing, Elara." "I didn't have a choice," I protested, but the words felt weak. "There's always a choice." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "You could have screamed for Damien's pack to help you. Could have run the other direction. Could have fought me when I brought you here." He tilted his head, studying me. "But you didn't. Why?" I didn't have an answer, or rather, I had several answers and none of them made sense. Because when he'd looked at me in that clearing, I'd felt seen in a way Damien never made me feel. Because something in his wolf's eyes had called to something in me I didn't even know existed. Because standing in front of him now, I felt more alive than I had in months. "I don't know," I whispered. "Liar." But there was no accusation in the word, only certainty. "You feel it too. The pull, the mate bond?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. I thought that was exclusive. One person, one destiny, all that cosmic bullshit. And we all saw how well that worked out for me. I'm not talking about the mate bond. Kael reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers were warm, slightly rough, and the touch sent electricity skating across my skin. "I'm talking about something older, deeper. I don't understand. You will." He dropped his hand but didn't step back. "Tell me something, Elara. Did Damien ever explain why the mate bond formed between you? Why his wolf chose a human with no connection to pack life? I shook my head. He said it just happened. That mate bonds are mysterious, chosen by the moon goddess. That's what they teach pups to keep them obedient. Kael's smile was sharp. But the truth is more complicated. Mate bonds form between compatible souls, yes, but they're also drawn to potential, to power. I don't have any power, I said flatly. That's why Damien rejected me. Because I'm just human, weak. Are you? He leaned in closer and I caught his scent, wild and dark and intoxicating. Then explain why you can hear my wolf, Elara. Why you understood him last night when he bowed to you. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat. Because he was right. When his wolf had looked at me, I'd understood him. Not in words, but in feelings and intentions. In the same way I'd always been able to read people better than most. Sense emotions in a room, know when someone was lying. I'd thought it was just intuition. But what if it was more? I don't know what I am, I admitted, my voice small. But I know I'm not a shifter. No, Kael agreed. You're something else entirely. And I think Damien knew it. I think that's why he chose you, and why he rejected you. That makes no sense, doesn't it? His eyes burned into mine. What if you're not weak, Elara? What if you're powerful in a way that threatens everything Damien's built? What if rejecting you wasn't about your worthlessness, but about his fear of what you could become? The words hung between us, dangerous and thrilling and terrifying all at once. You're wrong, I said, but doubt crept into my voice. Am I? Kael straightened, giving me space to breathe again. Then explain why your feet are healing at shifter speed. Why you followed a rogue wolf into the darkness. Why I can feel your emotions like they're my own. I couldn't. And that scared me more than anything else. Chapter 4. Secrets in the Blood. The rest of the morning passed in tense silence. Kael disappeared outside after our conversation, leaving me alone with my spiraling thoughts and half-eaten breakfast. I tried to distract myself by exploring the cabin. Anything to avoid thinking about his words, about the impossible things he'd suggested. You're something else entirely. I wasn't. I couldn't be. I was Elara Thorne, 26 years old, former graphic designer, painfully ordinary human who'd been stupid enough to fall in love with a werewolf. There was nothing special about me, nothing powerful. So why were my feet already healing? I unwrapped the bandages with trembling fingers, half expecting to find the cuts still raw and bleeding. Instead, I found pink new skin, not completely healed, but far more advanced than 12 hours should allow. Even with Kael's careful tending, this wasn't normal. This wasn't human. No, I whispered to the empty room. No, there has to be another explanation. But what? What rational explanation was there for accelerated healing, for understanding a wolf's intentions, for the way my skin still tingled where Kael had touched me, like some invisible thread connected us? I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the fire crackling in the hearth. My whole life I'd been normal. Boring even. I'd grown up in foster care, bounced between families who never quite wanted me, never quite understood me. I'd learned early to make myself small, invisible, unremarkable. Maybe that's why Damien had appealed to me so much. He'd seen me, or I'd thought he had. But what if Kael was right? What if Damien had seen something in me, something I didn't even see in myself, and it had terrified him enough to reject me in the cruelest way possible? The front door opened, letting in a gust of cold air and Kael's imposing presence. He carried an armful of firewood, his cheeks flushed from the cold, his dark hair windswept. He looked wild and untamed, more wolf than man even in human form. Storm's coming, he said, stacking the wood by the fireplace. We'll be snowed in by nightfall. Snowed in? I moved to the window, pulling back the curtain. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, heavy and threatening. For how long? A day, maybe 2. He brushed bark from his hands. Doesn't matter. We're not going anywhere until I know it's safe. Safe from what? You said Damien isn't tracking me. I said he hasn't sent trackers yet. Kael's jaw tightened. But Damien Blackwood isn't the only threat in these woods. There are rogues, rival packs, Things that hunt in the spaces between territories. Things. I didn't like how ominous that sounded. Shifters who've lost their humanity. Ferals. His golden eyes met mine. They're drawn to power, to anything that smells different. And you, Elara, smell very different. I backed away from the window, my heart rate picking up. Stop saying that. Stop acting like I'm some kind of magical creature. I'm not. Then what are you? He moved closer, and I found myself trapped between him and the wall, though he kept careful distance between us. Because human women don't heal like you do. Don't smell like moonlight and wild magic. Don't make an alpha's wolf bow in submission. Your wolf didn't bow to me, I protested weakly. He was just, being strategic, trying to get me to trust you. My wolf doesn't do strategy. Kael's voice dropped to something almost reverent. He does instinct, and his instinct told him you were worth protecting, worth claiming, worth everything. The intensity in his eyes made it hard to breathe. You keep saying that word, claim. What does it even mean? It means... He stopped, seeming to struggle with the explanation. In wolf culture, claiming is more than mating. It's a declaration of protection, of partnership. It's saying to every other wolf in existence, this one is mine, and I will destroy anyone who threatens them. That's insane, I whispered. You don't even know me. I know enough. He lifted his hand slowly, giving me time to refuse, and this time when his fingers traced my jawline, I didn't pull away. I know you're brave enough to run into a forest with a strange wolf rather than face a pack's pity. I know you're strong enough to stand after being rejected in the cruelest way possible. I know you're scared right now, but you're still here, still fighting to understand. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I shivered. I know that touching you feels like coming home after being lost for centuries. Kael. His name came out breathless. And I know, he continued, leaning closer until I could feel his breath against my skin, that if I don't step away right now, I'm going to kiss you. And that's probably not what you need after everything that's happened. He was right. I should tell him to back off, to give me space, to stop saying things that made my heart race and my resolve crumble. I should be mourning Damien, mourning the life I'd lost, the future that had been ripped away. But I didn't want to mourn. I wanted to feel alive. What if... I swallowed hard. What if that is what I need? His eyes flashed molten gold, and for a moment I saw his wolf just beneath the surface, wild and wanting. Don't say things you don't mean, Elara, not to me. Not when my control is hanging by a thread. I mean it. And I did. Maybe it was reckless. Maybe it was a rebound. Maybe it was just my broken heart looking for something to cling to. But when Kael looked at me, I didn't feel weak or worthless or wrong. I felt powerful, seen, real. Your feet are still healing, he said, his voice rough. You're exhausted, confused, processing trauma. This isn't... I grabbed his shirt and pulled him down to me. The kiss was nothing like I'd expected. Nothing gentle or tentative or careful. It was fire and hunger and desperate need. His hands came up to frame my face, his touch surprisingly tender despite the fierce way his mouth claimed mine. And when we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, I felt it. That pull he'd mentioned. That connection deeper than the mate bond, older than pack law. It sang through my veins like recognition, like coming home, like finding a piece of myself I hadn't known was missing. Elara. My name was a prayer on his lips. What are you doing to me? I don't know, I admitted, my fingers still twisted in his shirt. But I think you're doing it to me too. He rested his forehead against mine, and we stood there, breathing together, while the storm gathered outside and something equally tempestuous built between us. Finally, he pulled back, his expression conflicted. We need to talk. Really talk. There are things you need to know about me, about what I am. You're a rogue alpha, I said. You told me that. That's part of it. He moved away, running a hand through his hair in frustration. But there's more. Things that might change how you feel about me. About this. Then tell me. I crossed my arms, trying to ignore how cold I felt without his proximity. No more mysteries, Kael. If we're doing this, whatever this is, I deserve the truth. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into the fire. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. My pack didn't just exile me, Elara. They tried to kill me, and the reason they tried is because of what I did to the Alpha who came before me. His eyes met mine, and I saw the darkness there, the guilt. I killed my own father. Chapter 5. Blood and Betrayal. The confession hung between us like a physical presence. I killed my own father. I should have been horrified. Should have backed away, demanded he take me back to civilization. Any civilization, even Damien's pack. But I'd seen enough cruelty in the past 24 hours to know that monsters didn't always look like monsters. Sometimes they wore charming smiles and made promises they never intended to keep. And sometimes the ones who looked dangerous were the only ones telling the truth. Why? I asked quietly. Kael's shoulders tensed. That's your question? Not, how could you or what kind of monster are you? I'm asking why. I moved closer to the fire, needing the warmth. You don't strike me as someone who kills without reason. So what was your reason? He stared at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve, then slowly sank into the armchair across from me. The firelight cast shadows across his face, making him look older, wearier. My father was Alpha of the Nightshade pack, he began, his voice distant. Strong, respected, feared, everything an Alpha should be. But he had a weakness. His jaw clenched. My mother. I settled onto the couch, tucking my legs beneath me, sensing this was a story that needed time. She was his true mate, his fated one, like the stories say. And when she died, giving birth to my sister. He paused, something raw crossing his features. He broke. Not all at once. It was slow, insidious. He became paranoid, convinced that enemies had poisoned her, convinced the pack had betrayed him. He started seeing threats everywhere. That must have been terrible, I said softly. For all of you. Terrible doesn't begin to cover it. Kael's hands fisted on his knees. He executed wolves for imagined slights, imprisoned families for suspected disloyalty. The pack was bleeding, Elara. Good wolves were dying or fleeing, and those who stayed lived in constant fear. And no one stopped him? Who could? He was Alpha. Pack law is absolute. The Alpha's word is law, his authority unquestioned. To challenge him meant death. His golden eyes met mine. Unless you won, understanding dawned cold and heavy. You challenged him. For leadership. I challenged him to save what was left of my pack. To save my sister, who was next on his list of suspected traitors. His voice turned bitter. I was 23 years old, barely grown by shifter standards. Everyone thought I'd die in the first minute. But you didn't. No. I fought him for 3 hours, nearly died twice. But in the end, he looked down at his hands, and I could almost see the blood he remembered there. In the end, I tore out his throat while he begged me to stop. Begged me to remember he was my father. The pain in his voice made my chest ache. Kael, I should have been celebrated. The pack should have welcomed me as their new Alpha. That's how it works. You win the challenge, you lead. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Instead, they turned on me, called me a patricide, an abomination, said I'd broken the sacred bond between father and son, that I was cursed. They exiled you, I realized. They tried to execute me, said my very existence was an insult to pack law. He leaned back, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. My sister helped me escape. She was only 16, but she fought half the pack to give me a head start. I haven't seen her since. The pieces were falling into place. That's why you're a rogue. Why you have no pack. I'm worse than a rogue. His smile was sharp and self-deprecating. I'm a kingslayer, an alpha killer. No pack will have me, and any pack that discovers me on their territory has the right, the duty, to hunt me down. Then why are you still here? Why not run farther? Hide somewhere they'd never find you. Because I'm tired of running. The fire in his eyes matched the hearth's flames. And because 3 weeks ago, I felt something shift in the world. A pull, a calling. It led me to Shadow Moon territory. He held my gaze. It led me to you. My breath caught. 3 weeks? But Damien and I have been together for 6 months. I know. Something dangerous flickered across his face. I watched you, Elara. From the forest, from the shadows. I watched Damien court you, claim you, prepare you for bonding. And every day, my wolf grew more agitated, more convinced that you were ours, not his. I should have said creepy, stalkerish, wrong, but my treacherous heart was racing for entirely different reasons. That's why you came to the ceremony. You were never going to let him complete the bond. No. He leaned forward, intense. I told myself I would. That I'd respect pack law, stay away, let destiny play out as it should. But when I saw him standing there, saw him look at you like you were nothing, his hands flexed like he was imagining them around Damien's throat, my wolf wouldn't let me stand by. Couldn't. So you were going to challenge him? Fight him for me, if necessary? His voice dropped to a growl. But then he rejected you and everything changed. A rejected mate has no pack protection, no alpha's claim. It meant I could take you without breaking sacred law. Take me. I repeated the words slowly, like I'm a possession. No. He was across the space between us before I could blink, kneeling in front of the couch, his hands on either side of my legs but not touching. Not a possession. Never that. But wolves are territorial, Elara, possessive. It's in our nature. And my wolf recognized you as ours from the moment we saw you. Why? I demanded, frustration bleeding through. Why me? What's so special about a human woman that a rogue alpha would risk everything? That's what I'm trying to figure out. His hand rose slowly to cup my cheek, and I leaned into the touch despite myself. But I think you already know. I think whatever you are, whatever power sleeps inside you, it's been calling to me, drawing me across territories, through danger, past every logical reason to stay away. I don't have power, I insisted weakly. Don't you? His thumb traced my cheekbone. Then explain this. Explain why touching you feels like coming alive after being dead. Why your emotions crash over me in waves. Why my wolf, who hasn't bowed to anyone since I killed my father, submitted to you without hesitation. I can't explain it, I whispered. Any of it. Then let me. He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching mine. There are old stories, Elara. Legends about humans born with wolf souls. Women who could walk between worlds, command packs without being shifters themselves. The Nightshade pack called them Moonborn. The word resonated through me like a bell. That's impossible, is it? Is it any more impossible than true mates or men who turn into wolves or any of this? His eyes searched mine. What if that's why Damien chose you? What if he sensed what you were, and thought he could bind that power to himself through the mate bond? And when he couldn't? I asked, my voice barely audible. He rejected you before you could discover what you truly are. Kael's expression darkened. Before you could become a threat to his authority. Outside, the first snowflakes began to fall, silent and heavy. The storm was here, and inside, looking into Kael's golden eyes, I felt my own storm beginning. One that would either destroy me or transform me into something I'd never imagined. Teach me, I said suddenly. If I'm really this Moonborn thing, teach me what that means. His smile was fierce and proud. That's my queen. Chapter 6. Awakening. The snow fell heavy and silent through the night. By morning, the world outside had transformed into a pristine white wilderness, beautiful and isolating in equal measure. We were truly alone now, cut off from both Damien's pack and whatever other threats lurked in these woods. Somehow, that thought didn't frighten me as much as it should have. I stood at the window, wrapped in one of Kael's thick sweaters that smelled like him, cedarwood and wild things. He'd been up before dawn again, restless energy keeping him from sleep. I'd heard him pacing downstairs, the soft creak of floorboards marking his circuit through the cabin. You're thinking too loud, his voice rumbled from behind me. I turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, 2 mugs of coffee in his hands. His hair was tousled, his thermal shirt clinging to the defined muscles of his chest and arms. He looked dangerous and domestic all at once, a contradiction that shouldn't work but somehow did. I didn't know thoughts had volume, I said. Accepting the mug he offered. Yours do. He moved to stand beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. I can feel them. Your fear, your curiosity, your doubt. It's like... He paused, searching for words. Like you're broadcasting on a frequency only I can hear. I took a sip of coffee, using the moment to steady myself. Is that normal? Between wolves? Between packmates sometimes. Between true mates, always. His eyes found mine. But between an alpha and someone who's not a shifter? Never heard of it. So we're back to me being this Moonborn thing. We never left it. He set his mug down on the windowsill. Come on, if we're going to figure out what you are, we need to start your training. Training? I hadn't expected that. What kind of training? The kind that might keep you alive. His expression was serious. If word gets out about what you might be, every pack within 100 miles will either want to claim you or kill you. You need to know how to defend yourself. The casual way he said it made my stomach drop. You're serious. Deadly serious. He headed for the stairs. Get dressed. Warmly. We're going outside. 20 minutes later, I stood in the clearing behind the cabin, knee-deep in snow, questioning every decision that had led me to this moment. I wore layers upon layers, thermals, jeans, one of Kael's thick jackets that swallowed me whole. But the cold still bit through to my bones. Kael, of course, wore only jeans and a thin, long-sleeved shirt, seemingly impervious to the freezing temperature. First lesson, he said, circling me slowly. You need to understand what you're dealing with. Wolves hunt by scent, by sound, by the smallest signs of weakness. They're faster than humans, stronger, nearly impossible to outrun. That's comforting, I muttered. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be honest. He stopped in front of me. But wolves also have weaknesses. We're slaves to our instincts, to pack hierarchy, to the moon's cycles. And if you really are Moonborn, you'll have access to something wolves can't ignore. Which is? Authority. The word hung between us. Close your eyes. I hesitated. Why? Because I'm asking you to trust me. His voice softened. Can you do that, Elara? Just for a moment. I thought about everything that had happened. Everything he'd revealed about himself. He was a kingslayer, a rogue, someone any sensible person would run from. But he'd also been honest with me, protected me, given me space to process when he could have pushed for more. I closed my eyes. Good. I felt him move closer, felt the heat of him even through the cold. Now I want you to focus on your breathing. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs. Feel the snow beneath your feet, the wind on your skin. Ground yourself in your body. I did as he instructed, hyper-aware of every sensation. The bite of cold on my cheeks, the way my breath created clouds in the frigid air, the solid earth beneath the snow, stable and strong. Now, Kael's voice was closer, intimate. I want you to reach deeper, past your body, past your thoughts. There's something inside you, Elara. Something that's always been there. You just need to find it. I don't know what I'm looking for, I admitted, my eyes still closed. You'll know when you find it. His fingers brushed my hand, sending electricity up my arm. Think about last night in the clearing. Think about how you understood my wolf when he couldn't speak. How did that feel? I cast my mind back, remembering those golden eyes in the darkness, the way I'd known, just known, that he wouldn't hurt me. That he was offering protection, offering choice. It felt like recognition, I said slowly. Like he was speaking directly to some part of me I didn't know existed. That's it. That part. Kael's voice was barely a whisper now. Find it again. Call to it. I reached inward, diving past the surface thoughts and fears and doubts, deeper, into places I'd never explored, never even knew were there. And then, heat. It bloomed in my chest like a sunrise, warm and golden and utterly foreign. It spread through my veins, humming with energy, with possibility. My eyes flew open. Kael, I gasped. I know. His eyes were wide, reverent. I can see it. Your eyes, they're glowing. What? I looked down at my hands and nearly stumbled backward. They were limned in soft golden light, barely visible in the morning sun, but definitely there. Definitely real. Don't be afraid, Kael said quickly, steadying me. You're not in danger. This is you, Elara. This is your power waking up. But I don't know what to do with it, I said, panic creeping in. The warmth in my chest was growing, expanding, becoming almost too much to contain. "Then let me show you." He released me and took several steps back. "I'm going to shift, and when I do, I want you to do what comes naturally." "Kael, I don't think..." But he was already changing. The transformation was both beautiful and terrible. Bones reshaping, muscles expanding, dark fur rippling across his skin. Within seconds, the man was gone, and the massive black wolf stood in his place. The wolf's golden eyes locked onto mine, and I felt it. That same pull from the clearing, but stronger now. More insistent. The warmth in my chest surged, and suddenly I understood. This wasn't just power. It was connection. Communication. Command. The wolf took a step toward me, then another, and I knew with absolute certainty that if I asked him to stop, he would. If I told him to sit, to heal, to submit, his wolf would obey without question, because I wasn't just human anymore. Maybe I never had been. "Kael," I whispered, and the wolf's ears perked forward, attentive. "What am I?" The wolf couldn't answer, but I felt his response anyway. A wave of recognition, of rightness, of home. And beneath it all, a single word that echoed through our strange connection. Mine, not possessive. Not controlling, but reverent, like I was something precious, something worth protecting at any cost. The golden glow around my hands flared brighter, and the wolf dropped to his belly in the snow, that same submissive posture from the clearing. But this time, I understood what it meant. He wasn't bowing to me because he was weak. He was bowing because he recognized what I was, what I'd always been, something powerful enough to command wolves without being one myself, something that should have been impossible, something that explained exactly why Damien had rejected me and why Kael would risk everything to claim me. I was Moonborn, and my power was finally waking up. Chapter 7. The bond deepens. Kael shifted back to human form slowly, steam rising from his bare skin in the cold air. I quickly looked away, heat flooding my cheeks despite everything we'd just experienced. The golden glow around my hands had faded the moment his wolf submitted, leaving me feeling strangely empty, like someone had turned off a light I hadn't known was burning. "Here." His voice was rough, and I heard the rustle of fabric. "You can look now." He'd pulled his jeans back on, though his chest remained bare, snow clinging to his dark hair. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Part wonder, part concern, part something deeper that made my pulse quicken. I struggled to find words. "I don't know what that was." "That was you coming into your power." He moved closer, his feet somehow immune to the cold snow. "How do you feel?" "Exhausted." It was true. My legs felt shaky, my head light. Like I just ran a marathon. That's normal. Using power you've never accessed before takes a toll. His hand found my elbow, steadying me. "We should get you inside before you collapse." But I didn't want to go inside. Despite the cold, despite the exhaustion seeping into my bones, I felt more awake than I had in years. What else can I do? If I'm really Moonborn, what does that mean? It means a lot of things. Kael guided me back toward the cabin, his hand a warm anchor against my arm. "But we're not doing any more experiments until you've rested and eaten." "You're trembling." I hadn't noticed, but he was right. My whole body shook. Whether from cold or from whatever I'd just channeled, I couldn't tell. Inside, the cabin's warmth hit me like a physical force. Kael steered me to the couch, wrapped me in blankets, and disappeared into the kitchen. I heard him moving around, the clink of dishes, the hiss of the stove. My mind raced despite my body's exhaustion. The golden light, the way Kael's wolf had responded to me, the warmth that still lingered in my chest, quieter now, but definitely present. It changed everything. Or maybe it explained everything. Why didn't I know? I asked when Kael returned with soup and bread. If I've always been this way, why didn't anyone notice? Why didn't I? Because you've been alone. He settled into the chair across from me, his own bowl in hand. Moonborn need wolves to catalyze their power. Without shifters nearby, you'd just seem like an unusually perceptive human. Maybe you always knew when people were lying, or sensed emotions better than most, but nothing obviously supernatural. I thought about my childhood, bouncing between foster homes. I had always been good at reading people, at knowing which parents to avoid, which kids would be mean, which social workers actually cared. I'd thought it was just survival instinct. But Damien's pack, I said slowly. I was around shifters for months. Why didn't my power wake up then? Kael's expression darkened. Because Damien kept you isolated. I watched, remember? He never let you attend pack gatherings, never let you interact with other wolves. He kept you separate, controlled. I thought he was protecting me, letting me adjust slowly. He was suppressing you. Kael's jaw clenched. Damien's smart, Elara. He must have sensed what you were from the beginning. That's why the mate bond formed. Your power recognized him as a compatible alpha, someone strong enough to handle what you'd become. But instead of helping you awaken, he tried to keep you dormant. Why? But even as I asked, pieces were clicking into place. Because if I came into my power, I'd be a threat. Not just a threat. You'd be his equal. Kael leaned forward, intense. Do you understand what Moonborn were in the old stories? They weren't just humans who could command wolves. They were leaders, advisors, the balance to an alpha's raw strength. They could settle disputes, read truth from lies, calm aggressive wolves with a word. Some legends say they could even break mate bonds or forge new ones. The implications made my head spin. That's too much power for one person. That's why they're rare. Most bloodlines died out centuries ago, diluted into nothing. But sometimes, the trait resurfaces. His golden eyes held mine. Sometimes the moon goddess chooses to gift the world with someone special. Someone who can bridge the gap between human and wolf. You make it sound like destiny. Maybe it is. He set his bowl aside, untouched. Or maybe it's just genetics and chance. But either way, you're here. You're waking up, and we need to figure out what to do about it. What do you mean? I mean that word will spread, Elara. Even isolated as we are, there are eyes in these forests. Wolves who'll sense the shift in power, who'll wonder why a rogue alpha is harboring someone who glows with moonlight. His voice held warning. We need to decide. Do we hide what you are, or do we embrace it? I pulled the blanket tighter around myself. What happens if we embrace it? Then we stop running. We stop hiding. Something fierce entered his expression. We build something new. A pack of our own, maybe. Or we challenge the old structures, prove that rogues and Moonborn have just as much right to exist as traditional packs. That sounds dangerous. It is dangerous. He didn't sugarcoat it. Every established pack will see us as a threat, including Damien's, especially Damien's. And if we hide it, then we keep moving, keep looking over our shoulders, keep pretending you're just a human woman who got caught up in wolf politics. His voice softened. We survive, but we don't live. Not really. I was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. A week ago, my biggest concern had been whether my wedding dress would fit properly. Now I was deciding whether to unleash some ancient power that could reshape the shifter world. What do you want? I asked finally. Not what's safest or smartest. What do you want, Kael? He held my gaze and I saw the raw honesty there. I want to stop apologizing for what I am. I want to walk into a pack gathering without waiting for them to attack. I want my sister to know I'm alive, that I didn't become the monster they said I would. He paused. And I want you beside me, not hidden, not diminished, but shining with all the power you were meant to have. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's a lot to want. I know. A hint of his rare smile appeared. I've been told I'm ambitious. Despite everything, I laughed. It felt good, like releasing pressure I didn't know I'd been holding. Ambitious. That's one word for it. So what's your answer? He stood, moving to crouch beside the couch, bringing us eye level. Hide or shine, Elara. Run or stand. I looked into his golden eyes and saw my reflection there. Not the broken woman Damien had rejected, but someone stronger. Someone who glowed with possibility. I'm tired of hiding, I said quietly. I've been hiding my whole life, making myself small, trying not to be noticed. And where did it get me? Then we stand. Kael's hand found mine beneath the blanket, and that warmth flared in my chest again, responding to his touch. Together. Together, I agreed, and felt the word settle into my bones, like a vow. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. But inside, something was awakening, something golden and fierce and utterly unstoppable. And for the first time since Damien's rejection, I didn't feel broken. I felt powerful. Chapter 8. Shadows from the Past. The storm kept us trapped for 2 more days. 2 days of training, of me learning to summon that golden warmth at will, to push it outward in waves that made Kael's wolf respond with immediate obedience. 2 days of slowly building trust, of conversations that stretched late into the night, of learning each other's patterns and quirks. 2 days of fighting the magnetic pull between us that grew stronger with every shared look, every accidental touch. By the 3rd morning, the snow had stopped, and sunlight streamed through the windows, turning the white world outside into a field of diamonds. I stood at the stove making breakfast. I'd insisted on taking over kitchen duties after Kael had made the same simple eggs and bacon. For the 4th meal in a row, when I felt the shift in his energy. He stood at the window, body rigid, nostrils flaring slightly. "What is it?" I asked, setting down the spatula. "Someone's coming." His voice was low, dangerous. Multiple someones, wolves. My heart jumped into my throat. Damien's pack? No. He tilted his head, scenting the air. The signature's wrong. These are unfamiliar. His eyes met mine, and I saw the calculation there. Get upstairs. Lock yourself in the bedroom. Don't come down no matter what you hear. Kael. Now, Elara. The command in his voice triggered something instinctive in me, that new power responding to his alpha authority. But I pushed back against it, refusing to be dismissed like a child. I'm not hiding while you face unknown wolves alone. You don't know how to fight. Then teach me. Quickly. I moved away from the stove, squaring my shoulders, or accept that I'm standing with you either way. Frustration and something that looked like pride warred on his face. You're impossible. You're stalling. I could sense them now too, a prickling awareness at the edge of my consciousness. 4 distinct presences getting closer. Who are they? Can you tell? Before he could answer, a howl split the morning air, not threatening, but announcing. Asking permission to approach. Kael's posture shifted slightly, tension easing a fraction. That's unexpected. What? That's a formal request for parley. They're following old protocols. He moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the knob. Stay behind me. If anything goes wrong, run. There's a path through the back that leads to... I'm not running. I positioned myself slightly behind him, but close enough to see. We faced this together, remember? He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Together. He opened the door. 4 wolves stood at the edge of the clearing, 3 large males in various shades of gray and brown, and 1 smaller female with russet fur. They held perfectly still, heads slightly lowered in a posture of respect, not aggression. Shift, Kael commanded, and the authority in his voice made even me want to obey. Show yourselves. The wolves complied, their transformations rippling through the air. Within moments, 4 naked humans stood in the snow, 3 men and 1 woman, all with the lean muscular build common to shifters. But it was the woman who stepped forward. And when she did, Kael made a sound I'd never heard from him before. Something between a gasp and a sob. Hello, brother, she said, her voice carrying across the clearing. Did you really think I wouldn't find you? Brother? I looked at Kael and saw tears streaming down his face, silent and unchecked. Lyra? The very same. The woman, Lyra, smiled, and I could see the resemblance now. The same sharp cheekbones, the same fierce golden eyes. Are you going to invite us in, or are we having this reunion in the snow? 20 minutes later, all 4 visitors sat around Kael's living room, dressed in spare clothes from his closet. Lyra had barely let go of her brother's hand since they'd come inside, and the love between them was palpable, almost painful to witness. How did you find me? Kael asked for the 3rd time, as if he couldn't quite believe she was real. It wasn't easy. Lyra squeezed his hand. After you left, the pack fractured. Half believed you were a monster, half believed you saved us from Father's madness. I've spent the last 3 years building my own pack from the pieces. She gestured to the 3 men, who'd introduced themselves as Marcus, Devin, and Cole. We've been tracking rumors of a rogue Alpha in these territories for months. You shouldn't have come, Kael said, but there was no heat in it. If the Nightshade pack finds out you're associating with me, the Nightshade pack can burn for all I care. Lyra's voice turned sharp. They exiled you for saving them. They called you a monster for having the courage to do what needed to be done. I spent 3 years watching what was left of our pack crumble under weak leadership before I finally gathered enough support to leave. Her eyes found mine. And then I heard something interesting. A rumor about a rogue Alpha who'd stolen a human woman from Damien Blackwood's bonding ceremony. I felt heat creep up my neck as all eyes turned to me. Stolen is a strong word, I said. More like rescued. Rescued? Lyra's smile was predatory. From Damien Blackwood. The same Damien Blackwood who's been systematically absorbing smaller packs into his territory for years. The same Alpha who's been spreading propaganda about rogues being dangerous, uncontrollable. She leaned forward, interested. Tell me, Elara, that is your name, isn't it? Why would someone like Damien reject his mate so publicly? I glanced at Kael, unsure how much to reveal. He gave a slight nod. Because I'm not just human, I said quietly. I'm Moonborn. The reaction was immediate. Marcus and Devin exchanged sharp looks. Cole's eyebrows shot up. But it was Lyra's response that surprised me most. She laughed, bright and delighted. Moonborn, she repeated. Of course. Of course Damien would be fool enough to reject a Moonborn. She looked at her brother. Do you understand what this means, Kael? It means we need to be careful, he said warily. If word spreads, every dissatisfied wolf in the region will flock to your banner. Lyra's eyes gleamed with possibility. Moonborn were peacemakers, leaders, the bridge between human wisdom and wolf strength. With Elara at your side, you could build something real. Not just a pack, but a coalition, a new way of doing things. Or paint a giant target on our backs, Kael countered. The target's already there. Marcus spoke up for the first time, his voice grave. We weren't the only ones tracking you, Alpha. Damien's been asking questions, sending scouts. He knows you took his rejected mate and he's not letting it go. My blood ran cold. Why not? He made it clear I was worthless to him. Because you embarrassed him, Devin explained. And because if rumors about you being Moonborn reach the other packs, they'll wonder why he rejected such a valuable mate. It makes him look either weak or foolish. Neither is acceptable for an Alpha like Damien. So he'll come for her, Cole finished. For both of you. And he won't come alone. Kyle's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Then we prepare. How long do we have? A week, Lyra said. Maybe less. His scouts were only a day behind us. She looked between us, her expression serious. So here's the question, brother. Do you run again, or do you finally stand and fight? Kael's eyes met mine, and I saw the question there. This was my choice too, my life on the line just as much as his. I thought about running, about spending my life looking over my shoulder, hiding what I was. I thought about Damien's cruel smile, his public rejection, the way he'd tried to extinguish something in me before I even knew it existed. And I thought about the golden warmth in my chest, the power that made wolves bow, the strength I was only beginning to understand. We stand, I said firmly. We stand and we show Damien exactly what he threw away. Lyra's smile was fierce and approving. Then we have work to do, because if Damien Blackwood wants a war, we'll give him one he'll never forget. Chapter 9. The Gathering. Storm training became intense after Lyra's warning. Every morning before dawn, I worked with Kael and his sister, learning to channel my Moonborn abilities with precision rather than raw instinct. Every afternoon, Marcus taught me basic self-defense, how to use an attacker's weight against them, where to strike to disable rather than just hurt. Every evening, Devin and Cole shared stories of pack politics, territorial disputes, and the delicate balance of power that governed the shifter world. I absorbed it all like a sponge, driven by the knowledge that Damien could arrive any day. But it was the nights that undid me. After everyone else had retired to the makeshift sleeping areas throughout the cabin, Lyra claimed the guest room, the men rotating watches outside. Kael and I would sit by the dying fire, too wired to sleep, too aware of each other to pretend otherwise. "You're getting stronger," he said on the 5th night, his voice low to avoid waking the others. "This morning, when you commanded Marcus's wolf to heal, he didn't even hesitate. Marcus said I nearly knocked him on his ass." I smiled at the memory. The older wolf had looked genuinely shocked when my power had swept over him like a tidal wave. He made me practice gentler approaches for an hour afterward. Marcus is cautious. It's what makes him a good beta. Kael shifted closer, and I felt the heat of him even across the space between us. "But you shouldn't always be gentle, Elara. Sometimes power needs to be absolute, undeniable. Is that the alpha in you talking?" I teased, though my pulse quickened at his proximity. Maybe. His eyes caught the firelight, turning them molten gold. Or maybe it's just me, watching you come into your own, seeing you transform from that frightened woman in a torn wedding dress into someone who could command armies. "I'm not commanding armies," I protested. "I can barely control 4 wolves without getting a headache. Yet." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered against my skin. "But you will. In time, you'll be unstoppable. You have a lot of faith in someone you've known less than a week. I have faith in what I can see, what I can feel." His hand dropped, but his eyes never left mine. "Every day, the bond between us grows stronger. Can you feel it too?" I could. God help me, I could. It was there in the way my body responded to his presence, the way my power flared brighter when he was near, the way his emotions sometimes bled through into my consciousness. His worry, his determination, his carefully controlled desire. "Kael," I whispered. "What are we doing?" "I don't know." His honesty was disarming. "This isn't the mate bond. That forms between wolves and you're not a shifter. But it's something I've never felt before, never heard of." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something rough and intimate. "All I know is that touching you feels right. Being near you feels necessary. And the thought of Damien or anyone else taking you from me makes my wolf want to tear the world apart." "That's not healthy," I said, but my voice shook. "Probably not." A hint of his rare smile appeared, but I stopped pretending to be civilized a long time ago. "I'm a rogue, Elara, a kingslayer. I don't do things the proper way." "And what way is that?" I was playing with fire and we both knew it. I was still processing Damien's rejection, still discovering who I was, still learning to navigate a world I'd barely known existed a week ago. But when Kael looked at me like I was something precious and powerful and utterly essential, all my rational objections crumbled. "The way that claims you properly," he said quietly. "The way that marks you as mine for every wolf to see. The way that bonds us together so completely that nothing, not Damien, not pack politics, not even death, could separate us." My breath caught. "You want to bond with me? But I thought you said we don't have the mate bond." "We don't. But there are other bonds, older bonds. The kind formed through choice rather than cosmic accident." His hand found mine in the darkness. "The Moonborn used to form partnerships with alphas, political and spiritual alliances that were as binding as any mate bond. It required ritual, intention, blood." "Blood?" I repeated nervously. "A small amount, symbolic." His thumb traced circles on my palm, sending shivers up my arm. "But it would tie us together, Elara. Make you mine and me yours in a way that no one could dispute. You'd have access to my strength, my protection, my pack, if we ever build one. And I'd have your wisdom, your power, your loyalty." It sounded intense, permanent, terrifying. It also sounded exactly right. "When?" I asked, and saw surprise flicker across his face, as if he'd expected me to refuse. "When would we do this ritual?" "After we deal with Damien," he said firmly. "I won't bind you to me while you're still in danger. If something happens, if I fall, don't." I pressed my fingers to his lips, silencing him. "Don't talk about falling. We're going to win. We're going to show Damien that rejecting me was the biggest mistake of his life. Kael's hand came up to cover mine, holding it against his mouth. He pressed a kiss to my palm that felt like a promise. Yes, we will. A throat cleared from the hallway and we jerked apart like guilty teenagers. Lyra stood in the doorway, her expression knowing and far too amused. Hate to interrupt, she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. But Cole just signaled from his watch. We have movement on the North Ridge. All trace of intimacy vanished as Kael stood, instantly alert. How many? At least a dozen. Maybe more. Lyra's expression turned serious. They're not trying to hide their approach. This is meant to be seen. Damien. I stood too, that familiar warmth beginning to build in my chest. He's here. Faster than we expected. Kael moved to the window, peering into the darkness. But we're as ready as we're going to be. Marcus, Devon, and Cole appeared, all alert, all ready. The cabin that had felt cozy and safe suddenly felt like a fortress under siege. What do? I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. We meet them. Kael turned to face me, and I saw the alpha in him now. All strategy and controlled violence. On our terms, on our ground. Lyra, Marcus, you're with me. Devon, Cole, you stay with Elara. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. I'm not hiding while you face Damien. If this is about me, if he came here because of me, then I should be there. Elara, we stand together, remember? I held his gaze. Or was that just pretty words? Something fierce and proud blazed in his eyes. You're going to be the death of me. Or your salvation, Lyra said dryly. Come on, brother. Let her show Damien what he lost. It'll be good for both of you. Kael looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Stay close to me. If I tell you to run, I won't. I moved to his side, feeling my power rising to meet the moment. Where you go, I go. He took my hand, squeezing it hard enough to hurt. Then let's show Damien Blackwood exactly what he's dealing with. We walked out into the night together, 5 wolves and 1 Moonborn, ready to face whatever was coming. And in the distance, I could see them, a line of golden eyes in the darkness, waiting. Damien had come to reclaim what he'd rejected. But he was about to learn that some things, once given away, could never be taken back. Chapter 10. The Confrontation. They emerged from the tree line, like ghosts materializing from shadow. 12 wolves in total, all massive, all moving with the coordinated precision of a well-trained pack. They formed a semicircle around the clearing, their eyes reflecting the moonlight like coins scattered across velvet. At the center stood the largest, a wolf with silver-tipped gray fur and eyes the color of poison. Damien. Even in wolf form, I recognized him. The way he held himself, the calculated arrogance in every movement. My chest tightened with a confusing mixture of old hurt and new fury. Beside me, Kael stood perfectly still, but I could feel the tension radiating from him like heat. His pack, small but fierce, flanked us. Lyra to our left, Marcus and Devon to the right. Cole positioned slightly behind as a last line of defense, 5 against 12. The odds weren't good, but I wasn't the same woman who'd fled this wolf a week ago. Shift, Blackwood, Kael commanded, his voice carrying across the clearing with alpha authority. Or are you too much of a coward to face us as a man? The insult hit its mark. I felt the ripple of shock through Damien's pack, saw several wolves exchange glances. You didn't call an alpha a coward. Not publicly, not without consequence. Damien shifted, the transformation smooth and controlled. Within seconds, he stood naked in the snow, utterly unbothered by the cold or his vulnerability. His pack remained in wolf form, a silent threat behind their leader. Kael Nightshade. Damien's voice was smooth, cultured, everything Kael's rough edges weren't. The Kingslayer himself. I'd heard rumors you were haunting these woods, but I didn't believe them. Surely no wolf would be foolish enough to harbor a patricide. And yet here I am. Kyle's tone was almost bored. What do you want, Blackwood? Damien's green eyes slid to me, and I fought not to flinch under his gaze. I want what was stolen from me, my mate. My property? I'm not your mate, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. You rejected me. In front of your entire pack. You called me worthless. A mistake. Damien smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. One I'm here to correct. Come home, Elara. We'll complete the bonding ceremony. I'll overlook your indiscretion with this rogue, and you can take your rightful place as Luna of Shadow Moon. The offer hung in the air, tempting and terrible. A week ago, it might have been everything I wanted. Vindication, acceptance, proof that I was worthy after all. Now it made me sick. No, I said simply. Damien's expression darkened. I wasn't asking, Elara. I was giving you a chance to come willingly. But make no mistake, you're coming with me, one way or another. She said no. Kael stepped forward, putting himself between Damien and me. And in case you missed it the first time, she's not your mate. You rejected her. That bond is broken. The bond was never complete, Damien countered. I can still claim her. Still mark her properly and finish what we started. Over my dead body, Kael growled, and I felt his wolf rising, pressing against the surface of his skin. That can be arranged. Damien's smile turned cruel. I brought 12 wolves, Nightshade. You have what, 4? And a human woman who glows sometimes? He laughed. Did you really think you could win this? I think you're scared, I said, stepping around Kael despite his warning growl. The golden warmth in my chest was building, responding to my anger, my conviction. I think you rejected me because you knew what I was, what I could become. And now you're terrified that everyone else will know it too. Watch your tongue, human. Damien's composure cracked slightly. You have no idea what you're dealing with, don't I? I took another step forward, and power rippled out from me in visible waves, making the air shimmer. Several of Damien's wolves whined, their ears flattening. I'm Moonborn, Damien. You knew it from the moment we met. That's why the mate bond formed. My power recognized an alpha strong enough to match it. But you couldn't handle that, could you? Couldn't stand the idea of a mate who might be your equal. Silence. Damien's command crashed over the clearing, but I barely felt it. My power had grown too strong, too sure. No, I said quietly. I'm done being silent. Done making myself small to fit into your world. You rejected me because you were weak, because you couldn't see past your own fear long enough to recognize what we could have been together. What we could have been. Damien snarled, and now his wolf was showing through, his eyes flickering between human green and wolf gold. You're nothing, Elara. A powerless human playing at being special because a rogue alpha fed you pretty lies. Then why are half your wolves cowering? Lyra interjected, amusement coloring her tone. For something that's nothing, she sure seems to be affecting your pack. It was true. Several of Damien's wolves had their tails tucked, their heads lowered in automatic submission. They could feel my power even if they didn't understand it. Enough games. Damien's voice turned hard. Elara, you have one last chance. Come with me now, and I'll spare the rogue and his pathetic pack. Refuse, and I'll kill them all while you watch. Then I'll drag you back to Shadow Moon and complete the bond whether you consent or not. Ice flooded my veins. You wouldn't. Try me. Damien's smile was poisonous. You're mine, Elara. You've always been mine. That rejection was theater. A way to break you down, make you grateful when I took you back. But you complicated things by running to him. He jerked his chin toward Kael. Now, I have to make an example. Show every wolf in the region what happens when someone takes what belongs to me. She doesn't belong to you, Kael said, his voice deadly calm. She never did. Then you'll die defending her. Damien's eyes flashed. Which honestly works for me. One less Kingslayer in my territory. Your territory? Kael laughed, sharp and bitter. You don't own these woods, Blackwood. You're just another alpha drunk on power, convinced the world revolves around you. And you're just another rogue who'll die forgotten and unmourned. Damien raised his hand, and his pack tensed, ready to attack on his signal. Last chance, Elara. Choose. I looked at Damien, handsome, powerful, toxic. The mate who'd rejected me not out of weakness, but as manipulation. Who'd tried to suppress what I was before I could even discover it. Then I looked at Kael, scarred, fierce, honest. The rogue who'd risked everything to save me, who'd seen my power and celebrated it rather than feared it, who'd offered partnership instead of ownership. The choice wasn't difficult. I stepped fully in front of Kael, letting my power blaze outward until I was glowing like a star. "I choose myself," I said, my voice resonating with an authority I'd never accessed before. "And I choose him. But most importantly, I reject you, Damien Blackwood, completely, irrevocably, forever." The words hit like a physical blow. Damien actually stumbled backward, his hand going to his chest as if I'd struck him. Behind him, his pack whined in confusion, feeling the severing of something they didn't understand, because I'd just done what shouldn't be possible. I'd broken a mate bond from the human side. "No," Damien gasped. "You can't, that's not," "She just did." Lyra's voice was full of wonder. "She completely severed your claim. You have no right to her now. No connection. Nothing." Damien's face twisted with rage and something that looked like genuine pain. "You'll regret this," he snarled. "Attack! Kill them all!" His pack surged forward as one, and chaos erupted. But I stood my ground, power blazing, ready to show Damien exactly what he'd thrown away. Ready to show him that rejecting me was the last mistake he'd ever make. Chapter 11. Queen of Wolves. The world exploded into motion. Kael and his pack shifted in a heartbeat, meeting Damien's wolves head-on. The clearing became a whirlwind of fur and fangs, snarls and snapping jaws. But I barely registered the violence around me. My entire focus had narrowed to the power surging through my veins like liquid moonlight. 3 of Damien's wolves broke away from the main fight, charging directly at me. "Elara!" Kael's mental warning crashed through our connection, but I was already moving. I thrust my hands forward, and golden light exploded outward in a wave that hit the attacking wolves like a physical wall. They yelped, tumbling backward into the snow, their legs scrambling as they fought against an invisible force. "Stop," I commanded, and the authority in my voice wasn't my own. It was something ancient, primal, undeniable. I said stop. The 3 wolves froze mid-lunge, their bodies locked in place as if turned to stone. Their eyes were wide with shock and fear, whimpering as they struggled against my hold. All around the clearing, the fighting stuttered to a halt. Both packs stared at me, at the 3 wolves suspended in midair by nothing but my will, at the way I blazed with power that seemed to set the very snow glowing. "Enough," I said, my voice carrying across the sudden silence. "All of you, stand down, now." One by one, the wolves separated, backing away from their opponents. Even Damien's pack, wolves who owed me no loyalty, who should have ignored a non-alpha's command, found themselves obeying. Their bodies moved against their will, responding to something deeper than pack bonds. They were responding to their queen. Damien shifted back to human form, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. "What are you?" he demanded, his usual composure shattered. "This isn't Moonborn can't what?" I lowered my hands slowly, releasing the 3 wolves who immediately scrambled behind their packmates. "Command without an alpha bond? Sever mate bonds. Force submission?" I took a step toward him, and he actually backed up. "You never bothered to learn what Moonborn truly were, Damien. You just saw a power you could control, a mate you could suppress. You're an abomination," he spat. "A human with stolen magic, playing at being something she's not. I'm exactly what I was always meant to be." Another step. The golden glow around me intensified, and you're exactly what you always were. A petty tyrant terrified of anyone who might challenge your authority. Behind me, I felt Kael shift back to human form. His hand found my shoulder, grounding me, reminding me I wasn't alone. "You lost, Blackwood," he said quietly. "Your claim is severed. Your pack won't follow you against her. Go home." "This isn't over," Damien snarled, but there was desperation in his voice now. Several of his wolves had begun to slink away, their loyalty wavering. "You think you can build something? You're a rogue and a glowing human. The council will never recognize you. Then we'll build something they can't ignore." Lyra stepped forward, shifting smoothly back to human form. "You're not the only alpha who's tired of the old ways, Blackwood. There are dozens of us, scattered and alone, waiting for someone to unite us." She looked at me with fierce pride. And she just proved she can. The council, Damien started. The council is terrified, Marcus interrupted, joining us. Terrified of change, of Moonborn returning, of rogues organizing. That's why they created the propaganda about kingslayers and lone wolves. They want us divided. He grinned, sharp and dangerous. But she just united us without even trying. I looked around the clearing and realized it was true. Damien's wolves weren't attacking anymore. They were watching me with something between awe and hope. Even the most loyal were questioning. I could see it in their postures, their uncertain glances at their alpha. Any wolf who wants a different path, I said, addressing them directly. Anyone tired of living in fear, of following leaders who rule through intimidation rather than respect, you're welcome to join us. No judgment, no retribution, just a chance to be part of something new. You can't... Damien's protest died as 4 of his wolves stepped forward, heads lowered in submission. Not to him, to me. I release you from your alpha bond, I told them gently, and felt the golden warmth flow outward, severing their connection to Damien as surely as I'd severed my own. They gasped, suddenly free, and their relief was palpable. Damien looked at his remaining pack, now 8 instead of 12, and I saw the exact moment he realized he'd lost. Not just this fight, everything. This isn't over, he repeated, but it sounded hollow now, empty. I'll report this to the council. I'll make sure every pack knows what you are, what you're trying to do. Please do, Kael said, his arm sliding around my waist. Spread the word. Tell them Kael Nightshade has found his queen. Tell them the Moonborn have returned. Tell them we're building something new, something better. His smile was all teeth. And tell them that anyone who wants to challenge us is welcome to try. Damien's eyes blazed with impotent fury, but he was beaten, and he knew it. You'll regret this, he said one final time, then shifted and bolted into the forest. His remaining pack followed, their retreat swift and silent. We stood in the clearing, watching them disappear, until the forest swallowed the last glimpse of fur, and the night fell quiet once more. Then Lyra laughed, bright and joyous and free. Did that really just happen? Did we actually just face down Damien Blackwood and win without a single casualty? We did more than win, Devon said, approaching the 4 wolves who'd defected. We started a revolution. I looked at the wolves gathering around me. Kael's original pack, plus these 4 new additions, plus the knowledge that word would spread and others would come. Not an army yet, but the beginning of one. What have we done? I whispered to Kael. Changed everything, he said simply, then turned me to face him. But before we deal with the consequences, before the council sends investigators or other alphas come challenging, there's something I need to do. He dropped to one knee in the snow, still naked, still marked with minor cuts from the fight, and looked up at me with such raw emotion that my breath caught. Elara Thorne, he said, his voice carrying across the clearing so everyone could hear. You are not my mate. The moon goddess didn't choose you for me. You're something better, something stronger. You chose me despite every reason not to. You stood with me when you could have run. You awakened to your power, and used it not for revenge but for freedom. He took my hand. I'm a rogue alpha with nothing to offer but myself. But I swear to you here, before these witnesses, I will protect you. Stand with you, build with you for as long as you'll have me. Will you accept my pledge? Will you let me be yours, as you are mine? Tears streamed down my face as I dropped to my knees beside him. Yes, I whispered. Yes, you impossible, infuriating, perfect man. Yes to all of it. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and tender all at once. And I felt it, the bond forming between us, different from what I'd had with Damien. Not forced by cosmic design, but chosen. Built on trust and respect, and something that felt remarkably like love. When we finally broke apart, I saw the others had shifted back to human form and were grinning like fools. So, Lyra said, practically bouncing with excitement. What do we do now, my queen? I looked at Kael, at our pack, at the 4 new wolves watching us with hopeful eyes. I thought about Damien spreading word of what we'd done, about the Council's inevitable response, about all the challenges that lay ahead. And I smiled. Now, I stood, pulling Kael up with me, feeling the weight and rightness of what we'd begun. Now we build a home. We gather the lost and the rejected. We prove that rogues and Moonborn and anyone else who doesn't fit the Council's narrow rules can create something beautiful and strong. I looked at each face, seeing the belief reflected there. Now we show the wolf world what real leadership looks like. And if they come for us? Marcus asked. Then they'll learn what it means to challenge a Moonborn queen and her alpha, I said, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones. Kael squeezed my hand. Together. Together, I agreed. And as the moon rose full and bright above us, I felt my power pulse in response. No longer something to hide or fear, but something to embrace. I was Elara Thorne, Moonborn, queen of a pack that didn't yet exist, but would shake the foundations of the wolf world, and I was finally, completely, gloriously free.